You are seeing in the markets that the price of potatoes, vegetables, corn, wheat and basically absolutely everything that has to do with the basic basket is rising, because in this video we will get to the bottom of why all this is happening, so stay until the end, because what we will see interests you a lot. Let's start. Today I would like to update you on the food security crisis affecting Latin America and the Caribbean, as a hidden crisis is looming that will undoubtedly affect millions of people in the region and beyond, he said. Tuesday, Lola Castro, director of the World Food Programme in that region during a press conference in Geneva. According to data from this UN agency, of the 2.3 billion people who go to sleep every night hungry or without enough food to lead a normal life, 11% are in Latin America and Caribbean. This situation comes after, at the end of 2021, the region showed signs of recovery after the first impact of COVID-19, and the number of people in a situation of severe food insecurity had by then reduced to 8.3 million in the countries we cover, up from 17.2 million at the height of the pandemic. The domino effect of multiple climatic events, coupled with the ongoing pandemic and the food, energy and financial crisis linked to Ukraine, has left some 9.7 million people in urgent need of food aid in the 13 countries alone in which we work, explained Castro. But according to WFP forecasts, if action is not taken now, some 13.3 million people are likely to be severely food insecure in those 13 countries in the coming months. Food inflation is between 11 and 26%. For the World Food Programme, the main concern is the fact that millions of people cannot access an adequate food basket. For example, in the last few months alone, the cost of a metric ton of food products has increased by 54% in the region. The basic food basket is now considerably more expensive, leaving many unable to ensure their daily intake. Food inflation in the region now ranges from 11% to a staggering 26.6% in some countries, such as Haiti. Many of the countries in which the program works in Latin America have a grain import ratio of over 50%, which means that they produce less grain than they import. Exposure to financial crisis, according to the UN, of the 69 economies with serious exposure to food, energy and financial crises, 19 are in the Latin American and Caribbean region. This situation, coupled with shrinking fiscal space, which currently prevents governments from expanding social protection systems as they did very effectively in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, is pushing many people into poverty and seek alternative mechanisms to deal with the situation, such as migration. Hemispheric migration. There is no longer talk of sub-regional migration, now it is a hemispheric issue. Migratory routes are constantly changing, like what we have seen in the Darien Gap. In 2020, 5,000 people crossed the forest. In 2021, 150,000 and only in the first quarter of this year. We have seen a 140% increase compared to 2021. According to Castro's forecasts, the high number of people intending to emigrate, coupled with the current food, fuel and financial crisis, and the climate crisis, including what is expected to be an extremely active hurricane season, will only aggravate this situation. We are seeing mainly three groups of people on the move. Former immigrants, such as Haitians and Venezuelans, who were already in another country and need to immigrate again due to new economic difficulties, residents of Latin American and Caribbean countries, and people from other continents such as Africa and Asia, who believe that crossing the Darien Passage will give them the opportunity to reach the United States, said the official. He indicated that the program has spoken with people from 31 countries who crossed a Darien Pass, and, although they had different reasons for emigrating, the common thread was the inability to access basic social services, minimum income and a guarantee of access to food in their countries of origin. We are seeing a new trend. Some migrants who were already settled in a first country, sometimes for several years, are now moving to a second country in search of a better life, Castro said. Latin America and Africa call for more measures against food crisis. Leaders of Latin America and Africa demanded this Tuesday, 09.20.2022, from the rich countries, more measures against a food crisis, aggravated by the war in Ukraine and causing rises in food prices. Those requests were made at a meeting on food security in New York, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, and in which the US, Spain, Germany and other countries pledged to act to prevent famines. At the beginning of the meeting, the current president of the African Union and head of state of Senegal, Macky Sall, spoke of the need to find lasting solutions to the food crisis and recalled that the problem already existed before the war in Ukraine. All countries suffer the consequences, especially the most vulnerable, so it is important that we work together to find concerted solutions, he said. Saul put special emphasis on the lack of fertilizers in Africa, explaining that without these products, rice, corn, soybeans, cassava and other products will perish, and there will be famines. Beyond circumstantial solutions, we must ensure that the conditions are there to achieve sustainable agricultural production through a proactive approach and with sustainable resources, argued the African leader. UN warns of famines. At the meeting, in which some 20 leaders participated, the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, also participated, who advocated adopting a different perspective to face the crisis. In particular, he criticized the concept of food security because it assumes that humanity will be able to obtain the nutrients it needs with the free market, and said that he prefers the idea of food sovereignty, in which nations use their resources to feed their own population. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has greatly aggravated the food crisis in many impoverished or developing countries, which have seen the prices of basic foods rise and for months have been unable to access the wheat, fertilizers and other basic products that Ukraine exported. In July, the UN and Turkey managed to get Ukraine and Russia to reach a pact to create a safe maritime corridor to export grain from Black Sea ports. Despite this agreement, the United Nations has warned that there is a risk of famine in places like Yemen, Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Nigeria or Afghanistan, and, therefore, the issue of food security has become one of the central issues of the General Assembly, with the aim of preventing that threat from becoming a reality.